Hello! Thank you for selecting this resource. This talk was originally part of the Advanced Practice Summit held in September 2024 at the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, where profession, education, practice and workforce leaders came together to reflect on the previous year of credentialing, to share our vision of success and to start the hard work towards bringing credentialing to the mainstream. I spoke at this event as a core advanced panellist and as an experienced panel chair, and my talk is recreated here. I hope you find it helpful, however you intend to participate in the credentialing journey. I'd like to give you our impressions in two parts. First, I'd like to help you understand more about us. Calling us the panel is fairly dehumanising, but panels consist of people, and they're wholly decent people in my experience, and it might be helpful for you to know more about us and what motivates us to perform this role, and why I think we're set up to do a good job. Then I'm going to talk about what we've learned this year from conducting the panels, and I hope that those insights into the people involved and the process and what it means for the profession will help you to organise as we all move towards a bigger and quite different picture in the next 5 years. Now, in common with many of the chairs, I have feet in both practice and academia, with my main leadership roles being at the University of East Anglia and the University of Cambridge, respectively. Panellists, particularly the chairs, tend to be people of many hats. I'm a clinically active prescriber, but not an advanced pharmacist. Now, that's okay. I'm solid in my scope, I'm broadly experienced, I have a contemporary clinical vocabulary and a system literacy that allows me to understand and evaluate clinical portfolio content and to be a critical friend to panel colleagues who are more clinically aligned to the candidate. I've also got research experience, and my education and leadership credentials underpin the majority of my professional reputation. The panellists, though, represent all sectors of patient-facing practice. Typically, they are educational, operational, or clinical leaders, sometimes a mixture of all of those things, and they increasingly hold the relevant credentials themselves. And a panel is also usually multinational. The great thing about having a high proportion of academics and educationally experienced people represented in the chair position is a natural preoccupation with fairness in assessment. It's a great start, and it helps to keep the other panel members accountable to the curriculum outcomes. Now, for many people who have supervised trainee pharmacists, pre-reg technicians, diploma pharmacists, programmatic assessment actually isn't that new. So many of you will be better prepared to go through this process, either as a candidate or as a supervisor, and better prepared than you think. This larger process is novel for pharmacy, but actually we've been taking a global view of someone's capability using a portfolio of evidence and triangulation from other people for a really long time, and in the case of postgraduate diplomas, decades. Training is rigorous though, and iterative, and it starts with the screening of detailed expressions of interests to ensure that panellists have the appropriate experience, and then to allow us to create the matching database that ensures each panel convened contains individuals who can offer a broad and relevant view of the evidence. Why do they do it though? Well, it's not for the money. Now, from the outside, credentialing looks expensive, but once the assessment fee has been spread between 3 panellists, portfolio license, supportive materials, administration, quality assurance processes, no one's getting rich. If they're lucky, they might be getting a takeaway. It's on that kind of scale. So why does anyone do anything if not for money? Well, there's more than one type of compensation. There is genuine joy to be had from seeing someone succeed. The panel feels utterly triumphant when we credential a candidate, and that tells you something important about the people who put themselves forward for this role. And on a day where we can't progress a candidate to credential, which is a minority of portfolios, our overwhelming concern then is how do we support this person to get this thing right? We keenly feel the disappointment of that decision. The panel members are invested in a professional future. We believe that consistency, externality, reputation, all of those things matter to pharmacy, and that national benchmarking achieves assurances around those things that will add value to our currency in the times ahead. Our participation in credentialing, therefore, is a manifestation of that belief. We also know that the world of personal development in pharmacy is inequitable. Historically, arrangements have given high-level support in some areas and none to others. And this means that potential that exists isn't being realised, and as a profession, opportunities to be collectively better are being missed at scale. And the panellist believes that this process will help with redress. It'll make things fairer by giving a clear target to aim for and everybody the opportunity to get there. Now, I like a film and I like a good TV series, and you can sum all of those things up with 2 quotes. And the first one equates to the Spider-Man rules. With great power comes great responsibility. Leaders have power and responsibility. They have a duty to use their voices to influence and to cause good trouble, to communicate clearly and kindly, to enact good change where we see that it's needed, and to set an example for those who are seeking inspiration. The second quote is that decisions are made by those who show up, and that's from the West Wing for the under-30s among us. We are showing up. We're showing up for the candidate, for the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. We're also showing up for our own professional leadership agendas. You could show up, and I encourage you to show up. Let's talk about what we've learned from year 1. And the first people I'd like to talk about are the candidates themselves. Now, each portfolio represents an extraordinary commitment in completing the experiences, writing about them, contextualizing them, and all in a framework and in a way that makes a stranger understand you. In building relationships and sacrificing other priorities, it's important that we acknowledge that every portfolio submitted, regardless of the outcome, reflects work, and a great deal of it. Across every domain, a successful portfolio is striking in a single particular skill, and that is the ability to reflect deeply, honestly, contextually, and in a way that impacts future behaviours. I was pleased with how this went. Tells us very little about somebody. Being able to honestly interrogate the conditions of both success and failure creates an incredibly powerful narrative. And narrative's really important. The narrative changes the portfolio from a collection of stuff to an interconnected story of the person to whom it belongs. Good reflection is like a backstage pass. It invites the assessor into your head. It's like an interview with the director after you've watched the movie. It's the second disc in the DVD box set. I'm aging myself again. That interview with the director, that second disc in the set, that gives a much better understanding of the artistry than the movie alone. Lack of reflection means no backstage pass, no director interview. It forces the panel to extrapolate, to understand. And the problem is that one of the rules of fair and reliable, valid assessment is that we must not extrapolate. Another striking observation from the portfolios that don't make it through the credentialing process the first time is the conflation of endurance with experience. And because clear is kind and it's my responsibility to tell you that, I can say that duration of service is not a marker of advanced practice. Advanced is not a self-imposed descriptor of time served. It is a level of activity and responsibility linked to a complexity of practice and state of autonomy that even pharmacists of considerable longevity are not achieving. And I include myself in that, and I'm okay with it. More on that towards the end. The second people I'd like to talk about are the collaborators, the supervisors, and the mentors. A portfolio is an undertaking and it needs a team. Some people have a team. Some people will need to actively build a team, but the team is really important. It really does take a village. Because you see, sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and pharmacists especially those who are in primary care and community, exist a lot of the time in a feedback vacuum. Everything seems okay, but compared to what? Is absence of disaster evidence of professionally thriving? I don't think so. It takes a village because in a portfolio, multiple experiences and perspectives are enriching and create a lot of fodder for reflection. The more people you engage, the broader your reach, the bigger your sphere of influence, the better your impression of what it feels like to deal with you. Clear is kind, remember. Mentors and supervisors do need to behave critically as well as supportively. Because the panel cannot extrapolate a long way from what they see in front of them to draw a conclusion, it's important that supervisors and mentors also try hard not to conflate what they know of a person with what the portfolio says about a person. Expert mentor reports and evidence presented need to correlate. Failure to give clear feedback robs the candidates of opportunities to improve and excel. So choosing mentors is really important. Will they gushingly endorse everything that you offer them? Or will they hold a mirror up to it and encourage reflection through robust feedback? A useful mentor needs to be present, supportive, clear and kind, reflective themselves, and both coach and cheerleader, but they don't also need to be a friend. A great mentor acts with radical candour, not ruinous empathy. I am a fan of the work of Kim Scott. We've also learned a lot about process in this first year. The nature of the current portfolios is that they are from people who already believe themselves to be working at the level of advanced practice, and they're looking back in time for the proof. That's challenging, and sometimes the internal belief doesn't align with the external impression. Now, working retrospectively is always hard. Our memories play tricks, people move on, opportunities pass us by, and then a gap becomes difficult to fill. But there has to be a start and someone has to be the first. So kudos to the pharmacists who were brave enough to say, take a look at me for your first impressions. That was a hard thing to do. This will get easier. It will be easier when development is mainly prospective and part of a journey from enhanced to consultant practice in a clear development trajectory. Because then experiences can be pursued proactively rather than retrospectively distorted to fit. Now, programmatic assessment attempts to take an objective view of a set of subjective items. It is hard, but the standard is the standard. And this is what we've learned about the profession. Advanced has to have a consistent meaning across healthcare. And that's why recognition of this process with the RPS by the Centre for Advanced Practice was such an important standard to achieve and so crucial to maintain and protect. The NHS long-term plan talks about advanced practice and its expansion, but it does not make a special case for pharmacists. So earning centre parity for this process has bridged an absolute chasm. It's given us credibility that we previously lacked on the broader stage, and we must guard the bridge. Pharmacists are not a special case when it comes to advanced practice. The standard is the standard. This slide concludes the presentation, and these are the ideas that we took away from the summit with respect to my sharing around the panel's learning. With great power comes great responsibility. It's our duty to cause good trouble once we're in leadership positions. Decisions are made by those who show up. So if you want to be part of the decision, you need to show up. Robust reflection is crucial to portfolio success. Remember the backstage pass, the director's cut? It takes a village and not everyone has one. So there's a lot of energy in building relationships. Clear is kind. Radical candour is needed and not ruinous empathy. And the standard is the standard. Thanks so much for listening. I hope that's been helpful in your credentialing journey, and I wish you well as you move forward.